Hi, and welcome back to the third session. I'm Gianluca Fiorelli, and today we are going to have a person. I'd say he's an SEO that is doing SEO from since many years ago. It could be defined as the globetrotter in the SEO world. He's Scottish, of a real important clan, but he spent all his youth up until I don't remember how many years, but here in Spain, where I live, more precisely in the Costa del Sol, in Andalusia. Then he moved to Great Britain, London. Then he moved to the US, and now he's living la vida loca, let's say so, in a wonderful Caribbean island. Our guest is an enterprise SEO specialized in product-led SEO, AI workflow, and digital growth. And because of his experience and his knowledge, surely is going to be a wonderful guest today. And it is Martin MacDonald. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm fine. It's still very hot here in Spain. And now, today we are recording is still middle of September, and it's still very hot. I don't know. I think that in the Caribbean is also hot.
It's hotter in Spain. And to back up what you were saying in the introduction there, yes, as someone that spent the first 27 years of my life living in Spain, like I've got a good comparison between the two heats. It never, so I'm on the island of Barbados, which is a beautiful country to live, and it's fantastic. But the temperature all year round is between 28 as a minimum at night in the middle of winter, and 31 is a maximum in the middle of summer and the middle of the daytime. So like the temperature graph is just basically like that. It doesn't get any hotter or colder throughout the rest of the year. The only thing is we have so much humidity here versus Spain or that European Mediterranean heat, which is nice and dry. So that takes some adjustment. But yeah, it's just a nice temperature throughout
It's
the
only
entire
constant.
year
Yeah,
here.
yes. I was remembering it, but the closer you get to the Ecuador, the more the temperature is always stay more or less the same. Yes, it's not
We
like when you maybe were living in the UK and you had horrible cold winter, and all of a sudden with 25 degrees, 28 degrees, you were all yelling against the big climate change.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, I was born in the Highlands of Scotland, and I don't remember that. My parents left before I was 2 years old, and yeah, like I distinctly remember throughout my youth going back to Scotland for like 2-3 months every summer because Spanish school holidays were like July through September, and as soon as the temperature hit 23, 24 degrees, there's ginger people exploding. There's people getting burnt everywhere. Like, I mean, it was just completely ridiculous. I can't live like that. I was back in Scotland for half of December, all of January, and a bit of February this year. And like, I mean, I'm looking out of the window and looking at snow on the ground and just wondering, what did I do in my life to end up here at this point in time? So no, the Barbados temperature suits me perfectly. I'm perfectly fine with it. San Francisco, where I lived for about 10 years as well. Like, I mean, it's cold there. People just think, oh, California, it's nice and hot. I saw snow. I lived in the South Bay in the Santa Cruz Mountains. I saw snow on the ground there. Like, it's not a hot place all year round. It has seasons. So yeah, I might be very boring, and a lot of people prefer having 4 seasons to the year. I'm fine with 28 to 31 degrees centigrade all year round, and just a variance in the humidity. So no, I'm perfectly happy with this.
Yes, for instance, I would have no problem living in an eternal spring or end of summer. So
Mm.
let's go to more. I mean, we will return at the end of the episode to. I will return to ask you a few questions about yourself. So, our listener and watchers and spectators can know you better, also as a person. But let's go now directly into the topic. So let me start with the classic question of the first session. How SEO is treating you lately?
Do you know what? Really good question, because for everyone that doesn't know any of my history, I kind of started doing SEO in the late 90s before Google existed. But SEO clearly was a very different thing back then. I was building my own web products. I ran an online casino and gambling company between the years 2000 and 2007. And yeah, for between the period of, say, 2001, let's call it like the birth of Google, right the way through to maybe 2017, 2018, it was fantastic. It was the best job in the world. There was something new every day. Everything was constantly changing all the time. And then, to be honest with you, I kind of fell out of love with SEO between 2018 through to 2023, thereabouts, because frankly, nothing had changed and it was getting a bit boring and it was all very predictable. But the last, let's call it 3 years, where are we now? September 2025. The last 3 years since the evolution of SEO into SEO plus AI, I've fallen madly and deeply back in love with the industry again. It's new stuff to learn every day. It's kind of got that feeling that it used to have. The only difference being, I guess, way back in the day, certainly when we met, Gianluca, there weren't many people doing this as a job. You know, there was maybe a couple of thousand across the world, whereas these days there's thousands just in London or just in San Francisco. So the scale of the industry that we're in now is completely different to the way that it was back then. And that, you know, that definitely has its positives. It has significant negatives as well, but we'll ignore that for a second. So yeah, SEO has been treating me fantastically recently. I'm very, very grateful to SEO for everything that's ever provided me, for the lifestyle that it's afforded me, for the countries that I've lived, and for the companies that I've been part of over the last 25, 26 years that I've been doing this as a job now. That makes me sound really old, but yeah, unfortunately, it has been over a quarter century where I have been calling myself an SEO. Yeah, that's terrifying.
You are
When,
still younger than me.
well, do you remember when we first met?
I remember it was surely in London.
Mm-hmm.
It was in a search lab, maybe one of the first search lab. And I have a vivid memory of having, I mean, okay, during the talks, but classic networking, we must confess, I don't know if you still have this bad habit, but at the time we were both smoking. So we were outside of a pub and
Mm-hmm.
smoking, and it came out this story that I'm from Spain, I live in Spain. And so we started to talk, and so actually became friends in that moment between a beer, a cigarette, and chatting about the difference between Spain and the UK and how SEO was in 2011, because it was
It was
2000.
no. It was definitely before 2011, because I can tell you exactly when it was. I was thinking about this last night. It was the original Search Love, and it would have been 2009, I believe.
Oh, yeah,
Because there was an
yes. It was 2009. It was 2009.
yeah,
Yes.
there was an SEO Pro event, which then became Search Love the following
Yes.
year. SEO Pro was a Moz conference. It was held up on like the fourth floor of a thing in a room that was freezing cold.
Yes.
And I don't think we met that year, but the
No,
following year
we
was
met
Search Love.
the year after. The
Yes.
2011 was my confusion, because you were speaking also at the
Mm.
first Moscow. The Moscow
Yes,
that
absolutely.
I
So
attended.
2009 at Search Love. Did I? Yeah, I think that was like the second or third speaking gig I ever had. And yeah, I spoke at the first MozCon, I spoke at the second MozCon as well. And then went on to do 65, 70 different conferences over the following decade, thereabouts. So I did all of the conferences all over the world for 10, 12 years. I've kind of stopped doing that since I moved to Barbados, simply because everywhere seems so far away these days. Like I'm perfectly happy just sat here.
But
But that unfortunately means that I don't get to go and hang out with all my friends from the industry.
yes, I imagine that's why maybe you also try your adventure in the conference world with SEO Barbados.
Yes, yep, absolutely. So I didn't put one on last year because I had personal reasons to be back in the UK for, as we were saying earlier, for a good couple of months at the end of the year. And yeah, we've held 2 events so far here in Barbados. Had 30, 40 fantastic speakers over the 2 years come across. The first one was held in Clifton Hall Great House. The second one was held down at the O2 Hotel, which is on the south coast of Barbados. Both fantastic venues. And yeah, I'm hoping to have the third one in November of 2026. So towards the end of next year. But watch this space, because there's a lot of organization that's going to happen in
Yeah.
advance. Nobody knows the amount of work, unless you've planned one and done one yourself. Nobody knows the amount of work that goes into planning an event. And oh my God, like I remember posting my sleep tracker stats at the end of that week, and it was like I'd averaged 3 hours sleep a night for the previous 10 days or thereabouts. And I was dead by the end of it. But I mean, you know this yourself, because
Yes.
you've
When
run
I
events
when
before that.
I organized my Inbounder, I was going to say to tell you the same, because I mean, I remember in the first Inbounder, the last day after the speaker dinner, or the last day, I accompanied the speaker to a party and went home, and I slept 24 hours. I was totally destroyed. But
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
so when you
Hmm.
started, when Google even wasn't a thing, and at the time, doing SEO apart of it was really different. There was an aspect that is very similar to what it is now. But we needed, I mean, you needed, because I didn't start so early in the history of SEO, you needed to substantially work on dozens of surfaces, even if they were very different types of search, because it was a directory search, more than classic search retrieval Google style search. But the constant was that you had to really consider how different search engines were working. And somehow this is also another particular thing that is common now, because now we have Google, Bing, let's say, if we don't want to count Yahoo and all the other search engines like Baidu and other, but we have a classic search engine, even if they're AI components in search. And then we have all the LLMs were. So what is somehow surprising for people that came after, when Google was dominant, that we weren't even considering the alternative of Bing. So we were optimizing for Bing as a byproduct of optimizing for Google. Now the mindset is totally different, because we have to consider, okay, we have to optimize for Google, then we have to optimize for LLMs. Not all LLMs, and this is something that people should start to understand, not all LLMs are made equal. How Claude Anthropic retrieve, it generates its synthetic answer is different from how ChatGPT or Gemini are doing the same thing. And then, okay, maybe if we were some of our more advanced SEO, maybe we started to understand that this was going to be so, when we started to understand that we needed to optimize doing SEO for YouTube, need to do SEO for news, needing to do SEO for visual search, different surfaces, even SEO for TikTok, which was 3 years ago in the mouth of everybody. So I think this is something that the two periods in the timeline have in common. But you were saying also the big difference is that back in the days we were in the thousands, now we are in the hundreds of thousands. What is positive of these big numbers of NCO prediction, and what is the defect that you were somehow hinting?
So I think, and this plays into both sides of that question, right? I think the big difference between SEO 20 years ago and the SEO now today is that 20 years ago, we nobody knew what we were doing, right? Everyone had to learn how to test the frameworks of what they were doing and measure the results and then set their strategies accordingly. And that's exactly where we are today with optimizing for LLMs, because frankly, anybody that's out on social media, as I speak today on the 17th of September, 2025, that claims to understand how each individual LLM is ranking its answers and giving its responses is talking rubbish. They do not know at this point in time, frankly, because it changes. It changes on a weekly or a monthly basis anyway. Each and every model, when you start tracking this and looking at responses, it's different every couple of weeks. So consequently, there's no way that anyone can have a full understanding of it at this point in time because it isn't set in stone yet. All of these companies are optimizing their information retrieval and, if you want to call it, sort ordering, but it's not quite the same thing anymore. So consequently, it's this is the reason that it's become interesting again. It's because we've gone back to this environment where the important thing was being able to search, understand the results, try and draw your conclusions from them, and then optimize towards that. But there was no solid teachings. Now, by the time we'd made it to the mid 2010s, there was very, very little difference to the way that Google sorted its results from one year to the next, which is why I was saying kind of at the introduction of this, that it became boring, frankly. Once you knew what worked, it was about scaling the process rather than discovering new things. And it was the discovering new things part of it that really attracted me to this industry in the first place. I mean, you'll recall, like, if you go back to the early days of SEO, we had, like, the only crawler that we had was Xeno Link Sleuth, which was it was the best thing that we had at that point in time.
Yes,
right?
I remember.
The only backlink database that we had, and it was fantastic, and I still miss it to this day, was Yahoo Open Site Search, or OSS.
Yes.
And that was a free database of links. And the day that they brought that down, that was what gave birth to essentially Moz as it was at that, or SEO Moz as it was at that point in time, and then subsequently SEMrush and Ahrefs and all the rest of the tools that we now see out there delivering their insights and providing their products to tens, if not hundreds of thousands of clients, which is why we know, one of the reasons that we know how big the industry's become is because, like, if you look at the SEC filings from SEMrush, you can see how many active subscriptions that they've got. So we know now that there's hundreds of thousands of people that are practitioners of SEO through that reason alone. None of this stuff existed 20 years ago, and it doesn't really exist yet for LLMs either, which is why observation as to how things are working and then coming up with ideas as to how to manipulate those results as best you can for your own or for your own clients' goals has become incredibly valuable again all of a sudden, which is why I'm saying I love this now more than I have done at any point in the last decade. And yeah, we're back into this scenario where everyone has to play in a sandbox again. Everyone has to get back to where we were previously, which is there are no SEO blogs that you can just go out and read now that tell you how you're meant to be optimizing for this. You have to work it out for yourself. And this is where like a big change in the industry happened, probably between 2007 and 2012 or thereabouts, in that kind of 5-year period, that we went from an industry of people that were testing, refining, and then planning to an industry of people where, and there's nothing wrong with the people that did this, it's just that was how the industry developed. But over that kind of 5-year period, once we'd kind of gotten a handle as to how Google worked, people learned their trade through reading blogs, through going to conferences, through understanding what other people had done and experimented on and tested, and never learnt those skills themselves because they didn't need to. Now we're back all of a sudden in a world where that's become critically important again. And those same people that learnt their trade in SEO through studying what other people had published are looking to find what other people are publishing right now about LLM optimization or Google AI mode optimization. And frankly, as I was saying a moment ago, that content doesn't yet exist, because even with all of the testing, and this is something that I do on a daily basis, right, across 10, 15 large enterprise clients, what works changes frequently. What pages are getting traffic change frequently. What order companies are getting mentioned on changes frequently. So we're all, as an industry, again, September 2025, if you're watching this in the future, we're all working it out as we go along right now. And that's terrifying, but it's also incredibly exciting as well.
I totally agree with you. And in fact, we must say also one thing. Because of a need of experimenting things, SEO of our generation, now even SEO that now are super reputed, like you, let's be honest, we were all the possible ads that can be defined via SEO. We were the white hat, we were the black hat, we were the gray hat because we needed to test. And not being passed in that phase ourselves. Let's say I want to, as if it was a very short list of how you can recognize someone who is going to scam you as a spammer AI grows from someone who is presenting you its own experimentation, but in an honest way. How will you tell to this news generation that are eager to read and see what the others are doing? How to recognize the fluff from the truth?
Yeah, do you know what? I mean, it's a really good question. And I mean, at this particular moment in time, anybody that says anything with any certainty is, can I swear, is full of shit at this point in time, because there is no certainty. What anyone needs to look at in any content that's being published today to understand its accuracy or its honesty is look at the testing framework that went into it, look at how things were measured, and then look at changes that were made and what the outputs were in a multivariate world, in a world where you can see that in this test group, this was done, in this control group, nothing was done. This was the impact here, there was no impact there. And this fundamentally means that because we've not reached an industry consensus yet, this fundamentally means that you need to do your own research on the research that other people are presenting to you as to how they arrived at those conclusions. Now, the number one red flag is people speaking in absolutisms. Oh, these are the 10 ways that you optimize for ChatGPT. Oh, these are the 10 ways that you, and then are providing no further context as to how they arrived at those recommendations, because those are almost universally made up clickbait nonsense. Okay, so it's become having a critical mind as to how any of this works has become exponentially more important than it was, because we don't have that industry consensus. Now, if you went back in time 5 years ago, 7 years ago, it was all the same advice from every reputable person out there. Build content, make content align with the query better, provide a good user experience. And sure, different things changed every 18 months or so. But those things only changed because that was what was important for Google at that point in time. I'll give you an example. I mean, Core Web Vitals, okay? If we'd had this conversation 7 years ago, I would have been all like, right, web performance, that's the thing. You want to make your websites as, I'm speaking from an enterprise perspective here. You want to make your websites as efficient as possible for Google to crawl, to parse, and to index. And that's the most important thing. Now, that was said with an understanding that, you might be working on a site with millions of pages, and those pages were individually relevant to individual queries that people would be searching for. But that happened because Google's number one expense was crawling the web and maintaining their web index. So it became very important for them to ensure that cost base was as low as possible, which is why they pushed web performance. If you go back 5 years before that, it was all about mobile optimization, mobile viewports, mobile this, mobile that. And that was because that was when Google were looking at moving across from desktop crawling to mobile crawling, because they could see the point at which most people, that kind of inflection point where more people were using mobile than desktop. So the only changes in SEO we've had over the previous, say, 15 years, really, major structural and systemic changes, have been to make Google's job of indexing the web and returning a result as easy as possible. Now, we're now in a situation where we need to think about this. We need to think about LLMs in exactly the same way, because, how does ChatGPT crawl the web? Well, 2 months ago, the answer was they've licensed in Bing data and they're using the Bing index. So all of a sudden, optimizing for Bing, or at the very least Bing indexation, became really valuable. And I know some people at Bing are going to hate me for saying this. It became really valuable for the first time ever. But we're now in September. We're not in July of 2025. And for the last month or 6 weeks, ChatGPT have very, very clearly been crawling Google a lot to get there. So, I mean, look at right now, this week, the big scandal du jour in SEO is the and num equals 100 tracking in Google.
Yeah.
Google
But everybody is
Right.
really talking about it as something against a scraper in the sense of the SEO tool. But it is not
Yes.
really about the SEO tool. It's about OpenAI using SERP API for scraping Google.
Precisely, 100%. And then from that, so you know, when we look at, and I don't like all these terms that are being made up at the moment, but let's just use one that seems to be commonly used these days: query fan out. If you install, there's an amazing extension by IEMA, which is called ChatGPT Path. I'm just checking my browser to see what
Yeah, I
it's
have
called.
it too.
Yeah. So if you install ChatGPT Path, the Chrome extension, into your browser and then go to ChatGPT and make any searches, it gives you the sequential searches that ChatGPT are making to answer your query. So you start getting an understanding as to what queries are being made. Now, for each one of those queries, they were previously looking at the top 100 results and then going and checking information on individual pages that they thought would be relevant based on that. This is where a lot of the ChatGPT traffic and actual hits on your web service, hits, technical term. I'm not going to get into that, but I'm not talking about human traffic here. That's where a lot of that traffic was coming from. Now, Google were doing a terrible, terrible job of filtering this out, which I know because I'm tracking 10, 12 million keywords on a daily basis for their impression count coming from Google. And there was definite patterns that a number of people in the industry had pointed out, which proved to be very, very valuable. So ChatGPT et al. Were going out to Google, they were searching, they were pulling 100 results, they were then independently going and looking at the content on those pages, and then building you your response using the LLM part of it. It's a part of this that a lot of people aren't disambiguating correctly in their minds. Right now, you could make the argument that ChatGPT, now that it relies more and more on Google results as opposed to using the Bing index, is a wrapper for Google search. So it's using the results from Google to then go and parse the contents of those to formulate its answer to give to you. So if you rewind backwards through all of that statement, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, it was very important to rank really well in Bing for terms to rank in ChatGPT. Now, arguably, it's just as important, maybe more important, who knows, because we don't know the distribution between these two, to rank competitively in Google for these things. And now that Google have removed num equals 100 from their search results, all of a sudden it becomes exponentially more important again to rank in the top 10 results for the things that ChatGPT is searching for in its query fan-out model. Again, I put that in air quotes because that's a made-up SEO industry term at this point in time.
Yeah. But maybe the correct term should be something like query refinement or query reformulation. But
yes, absolutely.
And yes, I think because there is always, it was even more evident with AI overview that when people were saying, okay, in AI overview, you can see sources that are not ranking for the query where the AI overview is, but this was because as we discovered, not immediately, but later on, not immediately with the introduction of AI overview, all these query fan out both came out quite late, around February and March. And because of the query fan out, obviously they are so specific, this query fan out, that a completely different type of searches can appear. I totally agree with you with how to identify the eyebrows, as I call them. So from the honest people that are doing experiment or simply putting, I think, what we are doing and what are the results that we are doing, correct or not correct. That's why another polemics that always has been how much LLMs are relying on structured data or not for improving, for understanding the meaning of the content. I sincerely, I think that sometimes it is good. It is good because that means that SEO are somehow obnoxiously curious about the even little detail. But I think that, let me finish.
I have a comment about the structured data.
No, but I'm going to tell you my comment. I think that even if, let's say, a JSON is tokenized, The structured data means creating substantially patterns, even if they are tokenized. In the raw text, LLMs individuate patterns like this person as name XY is function and the same as this person in this link. So there are patterns. And even if, let's say, also these patterns are not understood basis as just a speculation, let's be honest. If people, for instance, in a biography, because I'm using the example of a profile page, if people were using just the list of things that in the schema.org/person are indicated as meaningful for explaining who is a person, we would have really better profile pages. So even if just with that, I will still say follow and use a structured data asset. So to have as a byproduct of that, clear content. So let's go with your comment.
Absolutely. So I totally agree. But so I want to address. I'd seen a study. I've not even read the study. Right. I'm only working on, and I know this is terrible of me, but I'm only working on the headline that I've seen and the meta description of the whatever was shared on social media. Right. But the point that was raised, and honestly, I couldn't even tell you who did this, but the point that was raised was that structured data has no impact on LLM ranking. I call BS on that for one reason and one reason alone. This is in addition to what you were just saying, is that if we're in a world where AI LLMs are extracting their answers from search and structured data helps you rank for something in search, then by proxy, having well formulated structured data markup schema.org on all your web pages, and that's enabling you to be returned by Google or returned by Bing as one of the answers for those queries that's in the fan out, then indirectly you are positively impacting your likeliness to be returned by LLMs. So it's not the same thing at all. It's a myopic view that, oh, when ChatGPT are hitting my page, they're not paying any attention to the structured data. Screw that. It makes no difference. If you're not in the corpus of web pages that are being returned in the first place, then you're not appearing in LLMs. And it's not something that you can test in real time. It's something that takes weeks to test.
Totally. But if you want to go technical, in SEO, we always, since the very beginning of schema 2011, 2010, we know that they are not a ranking factor. It's one of the things that always has been clear. The problem is that many SEO don't know how search works, and they always forget crawling, parsing, and indexing. In the parsing is where the structured data are important, and the better the parsing, the wider is, let's say, the query set for which your specific content will be indexed.
So this ties exactly back to what I was saying earlier about all of the things that SEO became over the years were purely to help Google. Structured data is one of those. I mentioned page speed and mobile optimization previously, but structured data is another one of those exact items where it was fundamentally thrust upon us so that Google could reduce their CPU overhead, the processor cycles that were required to understand what the context of any given web page was. So structured data has been critically important since Google started using it for that reason and that reason alone. Now, anyone that's saying now, today, that it's not important for AI is speaking with I don't want to sound pejorative here, but a lack of understanding as to what the second order effects are. And what I would like to say as well, just the other point that I'd like to make about people's understanding of crawling, parsing, and indexing is in SMX Advanced Seattle 2017, I want to say, maybe 2018, Paul Haar from Google gave a fantastic masterclass on this that I've cited so many times to product teams in large enterprise organizations. Paul Haar, his surname is H-A-A-H-R. So if you Google, or ask ChatGPT, for SMX Advanced Paul Haar indexing, It's available on YouTube. I don't know, Gianluca, you should link to it in the description of this so that people can just click through and see it. Absolutely finished watching. It's a fantastic 35-minute masterclass on exactly how Google works. It should be required watching for anybody that works in SEO and anybody now that is trying to optimize for LLMs, assuming that LLMs are using search indices, which all evidence and demonstration points to the fact that that's how the results are being built. So yeah, that should be considered absolutely critical viewing, and structured data is a strong part of that.
And remaining in the topic of LLMs, and let's go to the Google side of LLM. You told just before whether you are man of many experiments. There is one specific experiment that you can and want to share with the public about something that you maybe start doing for things like AI overview or AI mode, if you want. It's not an obligation.
The way that I would answer that question is this. The framework within which you should be doing experiments on your own site, on your own content, is the important takeaway here. Because nothing that I can tell you right now, based on the stuff that I'm working on across large enterprise sites, might be valid in a month, might be valid in 2 months when you're watching this, because it changes on a week-by-week basis. So the important thing and the important takeaway here is not the individual results of any given experiment. It's the understanding and the framework by which you should be doing these experiments. And by that, what I mean is the only rich source that we have in 2025 of keyword data and search and impression query data is the Google Search Console API. You can run 1,200 queries per minute through the API. It takes a while to get through all of this, but you know what? You can build tools that do this perfectly fine using Claude, using ChatGPT, just doing it in PHP and MySQL. You can build your own tool that does this, right? What everybody should be doing is understanding their data as much as they possibly can from their own Google Search Console through the API to understand what queries are new, what queries you're being surfaced for, what queries appear unnatural. This is a sensitive point at this point in time. So what people should be doing is looking at how to analyze their search query data for unnatural looking queries, which are happening in bulk and are happening regularly. And when I say unnatural, specifically what I'm referring to there is a similarity between search types that doesn't appear to be human. So look at very long searches. What I want everyone to do is download, and you've got to add a dimension to the operator. So you have to be searching by device or by country, and do it by day. And then download Google Search Console paginates to 25,000 queries. Download every single query that you can over say a 12-month period, 16-month period, because that's as much as you're going to get out of Google Search Console. And then what they want to be doing is looking for commonality between the longest searches that they can find. So simply take all this keyword data, and it could be 10 million different queries, it could be 100 million different queries. But to start this, just put a length field onto the end of every single one of them, okay? And then sort them descending so that you're looking at the longest queries over the course of the last 16 months worth of data. Once you start looking at that data, each and every individual person will start seeing things that no human is going to type into Google, okay? And then at that point, you'll start seeing patterns in the way that search has been triggered that have led impressions to your site. Critically important here is you're not really looking for, you're really not looking for queries that have got clicks. You're looking for queries that have got impressions and 0 clicks. And then you're looking for patterns within them. And then you're looking for the highest repetitions of those patterns. Once you have found that on any individual website, you will have a better idea as to the keywords, the search queries that are being searched to populate LLMs with information about your site, because that's how the LLMs are actually working at this point in time. Now, I'm a super nerd for all these things, and I love looking at the experiments that some of the best and brightest brains in our industry are doing, and I find it fascinating, okay? But I'm struggling to see at this point in time how any of my fascination for those things actually leads to improving outcomes for clients or improving outcomes for my own site. This piece of information that I'm giving you right now directly leads to optimizing for your clients or optimizing for your own site. So take all of your keyword data, go by the longest ones, look at them.
Yes, because I see what could be the second part of the experiment with you individuate this pattern, so you can cluster this pattern. You can, from long, very long verbose query, you can shrink to subtopics and subtopic implied by the query. And so going to see if you using, in this case, for instance, I'm citing this tool because not just because we are hosted by Advanced Web Ranking, but you can use Advanced Web Ranking for tracking visibility for topics. But you can also use to cite a tool of a common friend, Dixon Jones, like Wakai. You can use Wakai for topics visibility, not for single prompt visibility. And so you can start to understand what are your gaps. So I see this as the second part of your everything you have shared. So yes, thank you.
Well, if you break it down even more simply, if you look at the commonality between these machine-generated queries that are happening, they're actually very easy to optimize for. It's just people have not known what to optimize for. So if you're looking at an 18 to 24 word query in your GSC that happens 20 times a day and it's never had a click, start optimizing for those queries and see what happens.
Yes. Then you also have to put the context, because I did something similar for a client of mine, and when I discovered that at the first moment I was saying, these surely are something generated by an AI. Actually, a simple exact matching search on Google was giving me the hint that we were question copy pasted from test. So, students.
Yeah. But this is what I'm saying. So as opposed to providing a specific direction as to something that you should be doing now, I think the important thing is that people should have an understanding as to how they should find out what they should be doing now. So like, it's not, I'm being a bit meta here because I'm not giving a specific hint.
No, but
I'm giving
it's totally
this
fine.
is how you should be thinking about it.
The important thing here is that you gave an example where the framework is the most important thing. And talking about Search Console, I know that you are a big lover of Search Console. You even built once a tool around how to use Search Console out of your daily practice. A tool that I think it has been substantially, maybe without even knowing, redone by other people somehow. And the problem is, how can you, between brackets, really trust the data that Google is giving to us when, and I return it to the n equal 100 parameters. It's so biased by bot traffic eating the Google server without Google giving us this clear filter in order to understand what is AI traffic with classic traffic.
Yeah. Very good question. And on the first point, yeah, I've spent the last 8 years, Christ, more than that. I've spent the last 25 years building SEO tools now, but I've spent the last 8 years building out my own suite internally, which is what I run my business on and which is what I do all my enterprise stuff on. I'm going to show you something after this call is finished, and everyone else can simply, I don't know, follow me on Twitter @SearchMartin, because I will be putting that out into the public in the not too distant future, maybe even by the time this is out there and on the tubes. But in answer to the question as to what you can depend on and what you can trust, there's something very, very, very critical and interesting here. Is you need to have a solid understanding as to how that data looks and works in the real world, right? So the first thing that I'd say is, these queries that I was referring to previously are queries where you've got a large amount of impression volume and 0 clicks. If it looks unnatural, it probably is unnatural, and it's going to be bot driven. And you have to have an understanding as to what the point in that bot traffic is, and then you can optimize accordingly. But for the rest of the traffic, where you're actually getting clicks and you're actually getting sessions, it's spectacularly valuable. But, and this is a huge but, the sampling that Google is giving through the GSC API becomes more and more aggressive with every passing year. 5-10 years ago, you basically got all of your search queries, right? I mean, Christ, we had them in the pre-not provided days, so pre-2012, I think it was. We had all of this data in Google Search Console. every single year, the amount of impressions being hidden that we're getting through the GSC API increases. And this is particularly relevant across different individual sections. Now, searches that are relevant to a person are highly filtered. Searches that are relevant to an address are highly filtered. And it kind of goes down from there. And the only way that you can truly measure this is by looking at actual traffic on pages being taken through server logs. So the amount of times that a page has been accessed without an HTTP referrer. So what would look like direct traffic in Google Analytics or any other analytics tool. You need to look at the amount of traffic that you are missing on a given page type to have an understanding as to how much you are missing from Google Search Console. There is one other way of fixing that in Google Search Console for 90% of queries, but this is the allure of SEO. It's the kind of thing that you need to test your way into, and that's why I was saying people should follow me on Twitter, which I appreciate is a hellscape, on @SearchMartin, because at some point in the next, month or two, I will probably be putting more information about this out there as soon as I've finished rinsing it myself. Basically, I'm going to be cryptic on that one.
Yeah. Well, it's a good cliffhanger, and
yeah.
You cited a few times during the conversation, but you obviously, also in my introduction, I was specifying that you are specializing in enterprise SEO, and that you are actually working with a lot of enterprise companies. Just for and also for information of our clients. In the past, especially in the travel industry, you work with, was Expedia, no?
I've worked with everybody. Yes,
but what the question is, first part of the question, how more mature are enterprise company in everything related to search? First. Second, what has been the impact of AI search in their prioritization of work?
So in answer to the first part, how much more sophisticated are they, if we want to say that? Not at all. Enterprise websites are perhaps less sophisticated than the medium-sized companies, if you like, and that's to kind of structural constraints as much as anything. So yeah, I was global head of SEO for Expedia and all of its consumer brands. Before that, this kind of goes back to your conference naming, Inbounder. Before that, I was head of inbound marketing for Expedia's business-to-business division. But as part of that, I worked with most of the large travel companies in the world and worked helping them with their marketing. Subsequent to that, if we're staying within the world of travel, I have consulted for 3 major airlines worldwide. I spoke at the TUI annual general meeting about 7 years ago, something like that. Like I've worked across all of the big travel companies except for Priceline/Booking, because they will always remain the enemy because I'm an Expedia alumni. Are they more sophisticated? No, not at all. They just aren't. But when you get into enterprise SEO, it's not about the sophistication of the campaigns. It's about the constraints that come with massive scale and understanding how to optimize for those as opposed to optimizing for individual rankings on individual keywords. So I once had a conversation on Twitter where some idiot in the industry had said, "Oh, I'll outrank you for any given keyword. You just give me the keyword and let's see who's boss." To which my response was, I am not interested in ranking for an individual keyword. I am interested in ranking for 5 million keywords as much as possible. And that's the difference between enterprise meaning scale of keywords and pages and countries. That's the difference between enterprise SEO and non-enterprise SEO, is the breadth of what you're trying to rank for as opposed to the very pointy end of it. Now, clearly, ranking for the very pointy end of it is very important as well. But there's no difference in that. There is no difference in, being a small website. It's about having the best content, having the most page rank, having the page indexed. That's fine. But you know what? When you've got 300 million pages on your website, having as many of those as possible indexed as efficiently as possible is the difference. So it's about the breadth of it. Now that works for any industry. It's not just travel. It just so happens that travel has got the longest of the long tails of any industry, I believe, on the planet. Because ultimately, in the world of travel, you're looking to optimize for instance, every hotel name in the world, every town name in the world, every city name in the world. But then on top of that, if you look at origin and destination searches, so travel from A to B, you're looking at every combination of those in the world. So you start looking at billions of pages. That is a very different mindset.
Yes, do not talk all the, let's call it, inspirational search space.
Yeah, no, totally. Like, best beaches in the Caribbean is one thing, but frankly, if you could be number one for every single hotel name in the Caribbean, every single beach name in the Caribbean, how to get from A to B, where B is every one of those things that I just mentioned, that's exponentially more valuable. And that's what because people look at enterprise SEO and think, oh, it's this magical, mystical world that I don't understand. It's not. It's the exact same thing, but just at exponentially more massive scale. That's the difference.
Yes, but somehow it's similar to the concept of international SEO. Doing international SEO is the same, but doing national SEO, but scale.
Yeah.
And with very specific localization nuances. But when it comes to technical, it's the same thing. And now, for the second part of the question that I ask you, how this enterprise world is reacting to the eruption. So considering that enterprise usually is very bureaucratic, very slow in taking a decision, how much reactive are they to AI search?
Surprisingly reactive has been my experience so far. So I have standing weekly or bi-weekly conversations with the CEOs of several Fortune 50 level companies, where we're literally exclusively talking about how AI has changed over the previous 2 weeks, right? So, and I have never, ever had that with CEOs of client companies talking about SEO, right? I've been very, very lucky to work for 2 CEOs in my time who were SEO nerds themselves, right? Very, very lucky. And I'm very grateful for that because it gave me the platform that I had internally at my previous companies. But not once have I ever had a client come to me and say, the CEO wants to have a chat every 2 weeks about SEO. That doesn't happen. It is happening with AI search. Now, perhaps that's kind of self-selective in as much that I come from the corporate world now and I'm dealing with these very large companies, but you know what? I've never seen this level of interest before. And I think this level of interest comes because it's such a fundamental shift in the way that people are going to access information moving forward. But it's something that is exciting. Now, again, and this is the advice that I give all of them all of the time, is that we can't be taking knee-jerk reactions, because particularly in the enterprise world, you could spend 3 months engineering out a solution, and in 2 months' time, in 1 month time, that solution is no longer the correct solution. So we have to be quick, we have to be agile, we have to be testing, we have to be coming up with assumptions as to our understanding of what that testing has shown us, and then how to implement it quickly and run and keep moving with it all the time, because it is changing so fast. But you know what? This is why I say it's exciting again. I haven't seen this level of engagement from large corporations about SEO in a decade and a half of working with large enterprise SEOs. I'm seeing it in AI search, and I'm seeing it all of the time. So it's exciting for that reason as well.
Yes, it's very exciting. It's sometimes quite scary moment, but it's exciting. It's, at least, as I also said also in other conversation, we are not, optimizing for title tags, even if it was a basic thing, was becoming, explaining it for 10 million times was becoming quite boring. Okay, so, 1 hour of talks. Let's make a promise to have a second talk, let's say, in 6 months, because these things are so changing. But maybe we need to to do an update conversation in 6 months. But before closing, just a couple of questions about you. The first question, I live in Spain, so I have to ask you. You lived substantially 25 years of your youth in Spain. So what of that Spanish years is still popping up unconsciously in your daily life?
Oh, Lord, that's a good question. Okay, so I kind of lead my life with a very Andalusian perspective. I was two years old when we moved there, and I was 27 when I left. So most of my grounding in life and perspectives are very Southern Spanish. Now, that hits every part of my life. And frankly, the one thing that I will say is that also trained me to live in the Caribbean, or the Caribbean for my British and European chums, because all of that's bad about living in the Caribbean, about getting stuff done and bureaucracy and so on and so forth, is exactly the same today in 2025 as it was in 1985 in Spain. So I think of myself more as Spanish than I do as British because of my upbringing there. And what do I miss? God, I miss the food. I don't miss the lifestyle anymore because I found it here, which is why I feel so at home in Barbados and in the wider Caribbean. But my God, I miss the food. There's just, it's like a tortilla española. So a potato omelet. Like you can't get good tortilla in this country.
El espeto?
That brings me every day. Jamón serrano. Oh my God. You can get it here, but it's so expensive. And I grew up with a leg of ham in the kitchen all the time, and you'd walk past it and you'd slice it off, and you couldn't do that here because it would our humidity in the air does not permit you to have any food outside. It would be green in 2 days. So there's a ton of stuff that I miss from growing up there. But the lifestyle that I remember from growing up there, I found here, which is why I'm so happy in the Caribbean.
Yes, but this is the last question. Why Barbados? The Caribbean are so many islands, but why? What makes you choose finally Barbados?
So Barbados was the first country that introduced a nomad visa. And I was between Zoom meetings. I went onto Twitter and Barbados was the #1 trending topic. And I thought to myself, what terrible thing could have happened to I'd never been to the Caribbean, right? Before I moved here, I'd never been in the continent. Barbados was trending #1 on Twitter, and I clicked on it, and they were announcing the welcome stamp, which is a digital nomad visa. You apply for it, you pay a yearly fixed sum, and that is your visa. This was just as COVID was starting to get popular worldwide, and I've been living in San Francisco in the Bay Area for the previous 10, 11 years at that point. And we were just going into lockdown there. When I fundamentally escaped, I thought, right, I'll go to Barbados for a year. And here we are 5 years and 3 months later, and I have still not left. So yeah, that's the only reason that I chose Barbados, was literally because it was trending on Twitter.
So let's say in some certain way was a marriage for interest, but evolved in a true marriage.
Absolutely. I couldn't have put it any better myself.
Okay. Thank you, Martin. It was a really great pleasure also to see you again after such a long time, because, it's true that with the internet we can talk every day substantially, but seeing face to face, and hopefully let's see if soon also in real life, would be a fantastic thing to do.
Thanks for the invitation. I appreciate it. And I look forward to coming back in 6 months and seeing all of the things that were wrong about what we thought today about LLM optimization. That'll be good fun. And I will very much look forward to that. And I thank you for the opportunity and the conversation today.
Sure. And thank you to all of you for being here with the passions of listening me and Martin talking and conversating about SEO, AI, evolution, enterprise, and all of these things. Remember to ring on the bell so to be notified when a new episode is coming out, and subscribe so the channel will grow. Thank you.